It's the SDG podcast. We're here with the podcasters. Say hello, podcasters, and introduce yourselves.
I'm Elle Stahura.
Hi, I'm Chad Jetner.
I'm Peter Lawrence.
And I'm Kyle Bacher. And today we're going to talk about how do you turn around a bad team?
Like
Kyle, what's a bad team?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to take that personally and say that if I'm on your team, you're saying I'm a bad person.
Well, I was saying that, but I don't mean that in general. Normally, I mean a team that's not doing so well, maybe stuck in the mud, maybe some dysfunction, maybe stagnation, or just not performing well. I guess that's the question is, and this caveat, I just want to throw this out there: you can have 5 of the best people in the world and have a team that's doing bad.
The NFL proves that every day.
Yes. So I guess my question is, what is a bad team?
I think it can be a variety of factors. And I know, Chad and Peter, you have, experiences of your own. I've been on teams that have, 4 people who are really in sync and 1 person who is potentially off in their own world because they might be on multiple teams at once. A lot of it seems to be just creating this energy of communication and openness. And that can be really hard to achieve, but there are also a million ways to not have that. What do you think, Chad?
I don't know. I mean, if you're on a bad team, like what does that actually look like? What does it mean to be on a bad team? And how many people in the heat of it actually realize, oh crap, I'm actually on a bad team, and can identify specifically why it's bad? I think that's probably the hardest question to answer, is like, how do you identify that you're on a bad team? Like, how do you identify the problems that contribute to it being a bad team? And are you self-aware enough to realize that, hey, this team is bad because of these things that I'm doing, right? Like, I don't know that a lot of people, I always know, I'm like, oh crap, I'm not defining stories right, or I'm not implementing patterns in the right way, or, like, these are the types of things that I do personally that are going to slow down a team's velocity, right? Depending on if you're in a dev role, if you're in a architect role, or, BA role, whatever. But I'm neurotic, right? Like, I always, a little bit of that Stockholm syndrome, I think is what it's called, or no, I'm sorry, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. Like, that's
a good one.
Yeah. So like, I'm a little neurotic about that stuff. And I always kind of think, shoot, I could be doing this, and this better. But like, if I know that I'm on a bad team, like, it's hard to identify all of the causes, the big, like that factor into that, I think. I don't know.
Well, there's certainly a lot of factors, right, that make up teams that have problems, right? It's not just, everything boils down to communication, because people aren't communicating, or communicating the wrong thing, or, keeping secrets, or what have you, right? So there's a lot of, bad mojo, whatever you want to call it, where a team just doesn't quite gel because they're not on the same wavelength, is how I've seen it in the past. You can be on a good team with a bad individual, and you can be on a bad team with great individuals, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a team of individuals that are not being team players, as the sports analogy goes, you are going to have problems. If everybody wants to run in opposite directions, holding the same, circle of rope, it's not going to go very well, right? But if you all go in the same direction, same path, then the team can be super functional. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of different kind of definitions of bad that you can apply to a team. It's things aren't going well. The project's not going well. The velocity is slow. Targets get missed. Goals are not clear. You kind of know, excuse me, you kind of know that people are frustrated. People outside the team that are relying on the team might be frustrated or voicing frustration.
It's very rare that you're on a bad team without having some clue.
Yeah, unless you're on a bad team that's blaming like things outside the team and not really taking that inside look of, do we have a hand in this? Is there something we're doing? Are we reporting out and communicating well with the people outside the team? Are we understanding what they want? What's the mission? Like, do we know what the mission is and the purpose, and are we headed in that direction? And how do we know? I've been on teams and teams of teams, and I've noticed that if you have enough strong people on the team, you can handle some weaker, less functional, less skilled, less engaged people. A lot of times they'll just get swept right along. Like the rest of the team is so strong that you're not going to stop them. You're just going to get carried. They're going to drag you across the finish line. And then you can celebrate right along with them.
And sometimes that's good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I don't think anybody with a Super Bowl ring that didn't play in the Super Bowl minds having the ring. And they were part of the larger team just because they weren't on the field. They may have contributed in some ways. They're practicing against each other, making each other stronger. And that's a component. So you can't really look at a weaker team member and say they didn't add to the success of the team necessarily. I think within teams, you often get combinations of people. Little pairings break off and kind of work together on stuff. And if you've got good pairings, good combos, complementary skill sets, people that are exchanging ideas and vetting things, running things by each other, and then bringing that back to the larger group, kind of pre-sorted, pre-filtered, providing more efficient communication, decision-making, things like that. You've got to have that equilibrium.
But that's a good team.
Of understanding. Yeah. But knowing that, it's like a bad combination. I want to hope for the best and think all teams are just doing awesome. So lacking any of those things. A bad mix of people. You put two people on a task together that don't get along or have different ideas of how it's done. You take a SharePoint person and you put them with a Confluence person and tell them to figure out the best way to store these documents.
Oh, yeah.
And, you're going to have a fight.
Neither one has a strong opinion about their favorite tool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No one's really invested emotionally in their tools of choice. But it's it might be a physical thing. Remote. Maybe remote is not is not working for that group of people. Maybe they would do better in person. Maybe if it's in person, you've got like 3 people sitting together that are on the team, and then one person is on a different floor, and they're missing out on all the incidental communication. maybe 3 of the members smoke and 2 don't. And so the 3 smokers are making decisions and communicating, and the other 2 are left in the dust. I don't condone smoking, though. It's not a way to save your team.
That's not. Don't take up smoking just to save the team.
Yeah. You know, like a team tasked with doing something for that will be delivered to the business user. You know, that could be an issue of lack of empathy, lack of understanding of what that business user wants. And a good team could miss the mark. Does that make it a bad team?
No, but we need to figure out how
There's
to solve
aspects
some
of
of these
that.
things, right?
Yeah. Chad, what were you going to say?
Well, like, what are the concrete things that are, I mean, we talk about communication, we talk about, whatever. What are the concrete things that are outputs of bad teams, right? Like, for me, it is one of the most discrete things that I can identify. If I'm on if I'm doing a bad job or on a bad team, a lot of rework, right? You scope out a story, you assign it to a developer, the developer writes it to your spec, and then later on, if you're on a bad team, it gets redone. Not once, not twice, maybe 3 times. That is a discrete thing, like concrete thing that I see on all bad teams.
So that's
the
a
other
clue.
one. Yeah, it's a clue. Yeah. But I can't imagine a good team having to rework, after a certain period of time, having to rework code that many times. The
Do you
other
think the
one,
developer plays a role in that for not asking questions?
Yep. No, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Like, that is a real, the developer doesn't ask questions. The BA or the architect doesn't know that the developer is not going to ask questions, right? Like, he doesn't identify with his team and write the stories in the ways that, that teammate might be able to, is going to work for him, right?
Yeah.
Put enough details to get started, and
Yeah, the testers might not have the right use cases or understanding how is this piece of software actually going to be used by the customers. Yeah.
So when we think about bad teams and we think about traditional software or how we're doing software development today on agile, like an agile thing, maybe identify, like, if you've got a subpar developer, right? We can work around that, right? Like, we can train, we can do code reviews, we can improve that side of it.
And when you say subpar, you just mean compared to the rest of the team.
Kyle.
Yeah, if he's struggling on specific tasks, if he's
I wasn't going to name names.
but that's a thing that you can specifically work around. If you've got there are roles on a team, though, like if you have a BA that talks to the business, interprets those, and turns those into requirements for us, and that role struggles, like, the downstream impacts of that are massive, right? That leads to rework, that leads to other things. So I don't want to single out specific roles, even the solution architect role, right? Man, if you're in that role and you don't understand, 1, the problem, 2, the technology stack, and 3, the constraints that are put around you in an environment, the entire team is going to suffer for it. And if you've got leadership that isn't necessarily empathetic to, the team makeup, that's going to, you're going to struggle there. So how do you fix those things, right? And first, how do you identify them? And then how do you fix them, right? The one thing I like working closely with developers and being a developer, specifically tracking velocity, right? Like, hey, buddy, we said, we put story points on things, and story points translate into hours or days or whatever your team decides. But if you're shaking your head, story points mean something compared to one
story points are a relative measure against other story points.
Exactly. And whatever that relative measure is, if one guy works for 1 week on a thing that he assigned 5 story points to, and the other guy works for 3 weeks on a thing that he just assigned 5 story points to. That's a thing that you can identify and say, all right,
Yes.
discrete action. We are estimating things with different concepts of time, right? Different realities. Let's make sure that we're all living in, the Marvel 616 Prime universe or whatever.
Do we have the same number 5 when we say 5?
Exactly. So, I
think what you're saying is just that group team visibility, team awareness of where we are at, how we're doing, where are tasks, where are things, what's everybody doing.
I mean, it's
to me, like I was on a project and we weren't going fast enough. Things weren't happening fast enough. And I went up to the project manager. I said, we need a big room. We need a wall of all our tasks. And we need to start every day in that room checking in on every one of those tasks so that everybody knows where things are at. And there's a little bit of pressure on people because when you have to say, yeah, I'm still not there yet, I'm still not there yet, and everybody else is moving forward, I think pressure is helpful. I think a lot of people don't do well if there's no pressure. But I think that awareness of we need to know like how we're doing, because people kind of just coast at times. And that can be, I find every project has this period of time where it was really fun to work because you didn't see that deadline looming soon enough. You didn't have the pressure on you. You were kind of in the planning, dreaming phase, and it hadn't really become real work at that point, with a deadline breathing down your neck.
You can still have a project like that, even with a deadline. Can't be breathing down your neck, but you can still have a deadline and have fun on a project, right?
You can, if you're working, if you're moving forward, if you're not
is running like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, if you're not taking detours, and if people are on the same page, when you're having that weekly meeting and that question of how's this doing, and do you have any, or why isn't this done yet? Well, I went down this rabbit hole all week long, and it's like, well, you weren't supposed to go down that rabbit hole. Like, you
For
get
me,
into those situations.
Yeah, you totally do. And that's why, like, for me, I think what Chad brought up about having some kind of metric is immensely useful. For me, there are also what I'll call sort of more fuzzy things that I try to keep in mind. So if I am on a team and, if we're doing Scrum and we do a retro and no one puts anything on the Post-its or daily stand-up and no one really has an update, or their update is, I'm working.
I'm working on my story.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not, as a team, there isn't this shared investment in the work that we're getting done because you're not sharing where am I at, what's going to be coming up, who else on the team needs to know of changes that I'm making. Just this rhythm isn't there. So it makes all of these regular meetings just feel so stagnant and emotionally loaded too, because then no one wants to share because
locked up.
Yeah, and if no one's sharing, that means everyone's afraid of something that they don't want to get in trouble for, or putting someone else on it. Like, there's just not this cohesion.
There might be no greater thing when you're working on a project than for your regular meetings to be like, in that huddle, everybody is engaged, bouncing ideas around, talking about where they're at, kind of excited. Like, just engaged in the project.
Yep.
And just moving forward. That's when you're getting a lot of stuff done.
And that's where having the momentum that Kyle, you mentioned earlier, I think is so important, because it might be, it's ideal if everyone is totally engaged, but to sort of be more realistic, people might be on other teams. They might have stuff going on outside of work. They might have just had a horrible breakfast that morning or something. So if you can just have a quorum of people who are engaged to help carry something forward, I think that's important.
Can we just tell the truth about Greek yogurt? It doesn't taste good. It's a bad breakfast.
The yogurt lobby is coming after you this weekend.
Yeah. Chad, what were you going to say?
How do you fix that, Elle? Right? Like specifically, if somebody's just saying in your stand-ups, right? Because we do daily stand-ups, Monday through Thursday. Fridays are
recovery days.
Well, it's recovery days, and we strictly enforce, well, strictly enforce on every team that I've ever been on, to whatever degree I can, no meetings, right? Like you can't have meetings on Fridays because nobody's really engaged, and any outputs of the meeting on Friday are going to be, kind of forgotten over the weekend. But
I've heard that called "Don't mess with the tea," right?
What is
Respect the tea.
Respect
the tea. The tea is the lunch hour, so it goes across the lunch hour and then Friday. Don't
it's a
schedule
sideways
during
tea.
the tea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it now.
And you'll get a team of 8 people. There's always someone. Always someone that's got to abuse the tea.
I specifically make sure that the tea, now I'll call it, is practically a religion. But back to what I was going to ask is, with stand-ups, right? Like we do daily stand-ups, right? They're awesome. I love them. Even if they're just 5 minutes. I'm on a team of almost 12 people now, and we can still keep them to 5 minutes because there's got to be somebody kind of keeping pace, unless there's something to really talk about. But I have had folks that are doing exactly what Elle describes. Yep, I'm still working on this. Or just, somebody will be like, yep, I'm cranking away. And I had to address it in a certain way. And I'd be curious to hear how other people fix that.
That's one where, honestly, that's one of the things I love about being a consultant, is because you're not at a place long term. You're not beholden to the politics of a particular organization. So I can just look stupid and kind of do that so that to sort of break the ice. So what I've done in other teams is, if it is at all remotely related to my work, okay, you're working on it. Okay, I think that might be something that's good for me to know for maintenance. Or I think so-and-so is going to be doing QA. Would you mind sharing just a little bit more information about, the status of, what you've built, what's left? Or I heard you were doing this new integration. Would you mind if I put a meeting on your calendar this afternoon to learn more about what you're building? That's kind of a
learned skill, like when you need to become the person that's going to draw people out.
Yes, absolutely.
Someone's got to do it. It's like there's that pause, and then, still working on this. Okay, still working on that, and you're getting no information. Warning signs are short answers, and lack of questions. Like if you're asking people to work on a new thing and they're not asking questions, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you ask a professional chef to, get you a stick of butter, that's not that difficult.
They can do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's good. But when there's particular details and functionality and or content that needs to be there and they're not asking about it. It's like, do you have enough information to go and do this thing you're being asked to do? And you know that you didn't give them enough information to do it, to get it right. And they're like, yeah, I got it. I got this. I can do it.
Yeah. Like if you have a really good tech lead or scrum master or whoever's leading that meeting, they're great because then there is sort of that clarity of, okay, they're going to call X person out to make sure that we're still, a smooth machine.
Do you ever let someone get away with it for a day or two?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're just not having a great day. They can say, I'm working on it. I'm making progress. I'm making no progress.
They might be a circle backer.
Mhm.
Circle backer.
Like they're not going to ask enough detail in the room, but
Yes.
when you're walking out of the meeting, they're going to sidle up to you. So it's a sidler and a circle backer.
A circle back sidler?
It's going to go,
my goodness.
okay, so when you ask for this, you want me to, like, they don't want to do it in the room. Maybe they're not comfortable speaking in front of a group.
Are they shy?
Yep.
Yeah. And then, so it's like you make time then to go to those people and just, hey, I wanted to check in about this task. And make sure, I just want to check in on a few details that might be helpful.
Yep.
I've had it where I've gotten all the information. I thought that I knew what somebody wanted and did the thing, finished it to where it was as close to a final draft as I thought I could get it, handed it over, and then it was like, just no response, just like no, like.
Did they tear it up in front of you or?
And that happened a couple times where it was like obviously not what they wanted. So then what I did is I did the crappiest, quickest draft of something I could, brought that to them and said, am I heading in the right direction? What's working here? What's not? And then I go away and I work on it and I go back some more and go, okay, I did all that. And now I'm planning on doing the rest. It was these diagrams I was working on. Okay, now I'm going to lay this out like this. Do you think that's going to work for you? So it was like that constant check in. Like they couldn't tell me what they wanted.
They know what they don't want.
It was, I'll know it when I see it. It's like, okay, well, if I don't want to redo this whole thing 8 times, I need to put something in front of them to look at. So sometimes it's just the way you're going about things. It's not bad people. It's you haven't solved the riddle of the Sphinx in how to work with each other or how to get requirements or translate those into the actual work. Like you haven't gelled yet. And I think time on the task, time on the project, like you can't expect to be a great team when it's been 2 weeks. And you all just came together.
Right.
It takes a while. What I've noticed is as an FTE, when you kind of form, like your department forms a really solid team that's doing really well, then your workload goes way up. Like, oh, these are the people that get stuff done. And then you get better. You get more experience. You get sharper. I mean, you're getting fed what you need to just be a better worker. And if you're on bad teams, they give you less important. It's like that, and then it doesn't. That team doesn't get stronger as fast. Like you're making a weak team. You're keeping them weak by not trusting them.
Does it? At what age do we get, or at what point in our careers do we get where that doesn't matter to us anymore? right? Like if I was not given the most important project at a given client, if I was given, some throwaway thing, some nice to have, I don't get paid differently based on the importance of the project that I'm working on, right? And
As far as we know.
I mean, as far as I know. So I've actually struggled with that question every once in a while, and I know it's diverging from what we're really talking about. But
well, I think that for me, it's as long as it's something that needs to get done. Like I've been the someone in the someone's got to do it category on different projects where I'm doing stuff that is not really in my wheelhouse, but someone's got to do it. We don't have a person to do it. To me, there's some nobility in willingness to take on whatever they throw at you.
yes.
If I see the CEO plunging a toilet, that's a guy I like and respect. Like if you're willing to mop the floor, if you're like when something happens, you're willing to get your hands dirty, you're willing to do the undesirable task.
Roll up your sleeves.
Yeah, you don't need that's I think an important thing to learn as a consultant is how not to be the star. Like that's not why you're not there to be a celebrity and to become renowned for your deeds. You're there to help get the work done.
You don't want to be the one that leaves and a storybook is written about you, about all your storied accomplishments when you leave. There goes Kyle. Oh.
I don't
Not
know.
as a consultant, right?
As I don't know, for those type in that kind of situation, it's I heard the phrase recently, you guys are a victim of your own success, which means, oh shoot, we
Succeeded too well.
We did too well, and now we're bringing on additional work for ourselves,
right.
Which is nice. But that's kind of why I asked the question. Like, man, does it matter much to me that I'm working on like a critical path for, like if I was in health insurance and I was taking on the project that said, yes, this group of people will not be insured if you're not, I'm using it as a made up example, but like
totally hypothetical,
completely hypothetical. But like at the end of the day, I'm going to be a little less stressed if I'm not on that project. But what does the trade-off between your stress level, your work-life balance, and your actual sense of pride in what you're doing, what's the trade-off? I don't know. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about teams.
Right.
But you could take it as more of a team sense, right? The team that's on the critical path, the team that's on the so-so path, and the team that's on the, you guys are way over in the backwaters doing whatever.
Yeah.
Have fun with that.
Yeah.
That's all we trust you with now.
The backwater team, I think it would be nice to alternate. Like, hey, you're on a really, really, really critical path initiative. And then in next year or the year after, hey, this app is on maintenance mode. We just need somebody to implement a few interfaces, blah, blah, blah.
So like a palate cleanser.
A stress reliever,
charge your batteries back up.
Like on some projects, I feel like I'm just white knuckling it all the way through, right? Like just completely white knuckling it and holding my breath and just, like the Ewok on Endor trying to drive the speeder bike, literally flying behind it, white knuckling through the forest.
That looks fun.
It does look fun.
But do you think the other people on your team are also white knuckling it, or is it you?
Who is it? A team of Ewoks on bikes?
Exactly.
the other
Like the Shriners.
Like, oh, look at that guy go.
Yeah, little cars.
I think, depending on the project, purely hypothetical, but depending on the project, yeah, if you are on a thing that you know is like the success or failure of your product, your project has bubbled up to, you know, the C-level suite at a major corporation, then everybody kind of is, to a degree, white knuckling it. If you're a developer, I mean, if you're the fella just writing some APIs and, you know, maybe you don't have the context to understand that the importance of what you're doing, but if you're in a leadership role on a project, if everybody else isn't white knuckling it, I'd be surprised.
That means you're not communicating the white knuckle ability of that team. Like, hey,
well,
guys, you should be white knuckling it right now, because
that communication is going out and it's being heard because we spend the same amount of time. We have patio parties now where we talk about.
I thought it was hypothetical.
It is.
You know, you're not going to bench your best players.
That's the hard part, right? The superstars get the superstar stuff.
When you have less important projects, you know, maybe you'll let the second string play out the quarter, just to stay in the sports analogy.
Or I wonder if you know, that's why it's important to have people who are looking at all the different sets of teams that are across the organization, so that you can communicate to the white knuckle team, like, this is crunch time. We know it's really stressful. When it's done, we're going to, you know, reevaluate and see if you feel you need to take a break with, you know, something else. So just to give people a sense of scope for their white knuckling.
Yes, right. That's actually really good. Like, one of my frustrations is like platitude driven teams, right? This is why I was like, okay, what specific concrete things can we do to fix this or this or this? Right. Instead of throwing out generalizations and platitudes, like, hey, what can you really do to track, like, when the team is going bad? Like, what are the bad inputs that you're getting? What are the bad outputs that you're putting out there? Like, what can you actually grab onto and seriously fix? And communication is always going to be one of them, right?
But if you have bad communication, you might not get to those fixes, right? If nobody's telling you why they're not doing well, then you're not going to be able to fix it, right?
And that's where I think, like, having you almost have to have somebody with ADD, right? Like, and for me, that's kind of one of my
superpowers. Yes.
Yeah. Like, every morning, like, I'm looking for pull requests. I'm looking through every line of everything that everybody's written. I'm reviewing all of our fresh documentation from BAs that went into Confluence the day before, because, you know, we've got great tools to actually find that. I don't say, please God, don't take that as you need somebody like this on every single team, but you do need somebody that is a little bit more driven than, here's my tasks, here's what I'm doing today. Once I'm done with that, you know, I can kind of coast for the rest of the day, right? Like, and if you don't, I think, like, genuinely, if you don't have that, I don't know. I've never, the teams that I've been on where I'm not that guy, or there hasn't been that guy, have struggled. I apologize for talking too long.
To me, the common thread through all, like, for lack of a better word, bad teams is leadership. Because leadership needs to make sure the team is going well and things are going well, and to keep an eye on everybody. You know, that's kind of leader's job, and make sure that the correct communication, make sure everybody knows the mission, make sure that conflicts are getting resolved, obstacles are getting removed, and having clear leadership. You can you can put a bunch of people in a room and give them a task, and leaders will probably emerge. Someone will get things going and start
even
drawing
on a team of equals. There are some that are going to come above.
Yeah, and you'll have two leaders that emerge, and one will have enough experience to go, I'm going to pull back instead of like creating this conflict, I'm going to pull back into a supporting role.
Rather than butting heads.
Like that noodle exercise we did with the spaghetti noodles. Remember that? We had to build a tower out of dry spaghetti noodles, Peter.
Um,
What
And we
a
got them in
waste
the
of
same team.
noodles.
what?
What a waste of noodles. This is
We wasted tons of spaghetti noodles trying to build a tower. It was some like presentation thing we did at the office.
Oh yeah.
You had masking tape. Peter and I were on the
like-
same team.
This
and
is like
what I'll do-
ages ago.
Yeah. But I pulled one of my tricks, and that's I got up and started drawing on the whiteboard to get things going. And then Peter chimed in with a lot of good ideas. And then I just sat down and let him take over.
Wow.
So having an activator, but it's like who's the clear like and sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not, but sometimes that can be a problem. There's litmus tests like grumbling. Drama and grumbling have a huge time cost.
Okay, so drama. What's the best solution to drama?
More drama.
More drama.
Counter drama. Yeah.
It's
a different
Soap operas have proven that you can carry drama for years.
decades. Even.
and look how happy they are on those soap
Well,
operas.
The soap opera people are happy, but usually somebody ends up dying, and that doesn't make for a good team, right?
I don't have a good answer for that one, Peter, because it's one of the ones that I struggle with, because there is occasionally people that, folks that just need attention. And if the way to get attention is to, create situations, like I'm just not equipped to handle with that type of personality. Right. And usually the way I've handled it previous is, to say, listen, let's find you something that's going to make you happier. Right. Because this isn't it.
Right.
But outside of that, without having the ability to do that, really desperately seeking answers to that one. That would be wonderful to know.
Yeah.
How do you deal with them?
Drama needs an ear to stay alive.
True.
People that bring drama need an audience. And what I found is it's usually somebody that is dramatic. They're just people that have personalities that way, that want to build something into and make it a thing. And when it's not.
Peter.
And
That's not true.
they inject drama into everything they touch. And so when you encounter a person like that, keeping it work related, keeping things back to the task at hand, focusing on what's important you're just kind of ignoring the drama.
Can you give them good attention for good?
They'll realize that you're not their audience. And so it boils down to the dramatic people find each other and take a lot of smoke breaks and coffee breaks, and so they can regale each other with tales of drama about so-and-so. And gossip is horrible. And
Gossip never helps.
drama
that's for
is a
sure.
time waster. It's like with drama, it's like, what happens if you do nothing? You got a problem with this person. You got to think like, okay, what happens if you don't react? What's going to happen? Like tomorrow, is this going to blow over?
If you can get everybody to not react, then that works well. The problem is that the drama people tend to find an audience of 2 or 3 at least that will listen to them and maybe go out and on their breaks and chat about it, right?
Yeah, there's usually a target for the drama. Usually somebody else.
Yeah,
And-
I usually whenever I've had that situation come up, my tactic is to try and steer them towards solutioning as fast as possible. Because, okay, if it's genuinely a problem and we need to figure out how you guys can work together better, or we can fix this particular software or whatever. Like, okay, how can we fix it? Like, thank you for sharing your concerns. Sweet. I'm sorry this is tough for you. That sounds frustrating. And if they don't have any solutions, then it's sort of okay, they just needed to share with the world.
They just feel frustrated and don't understand why.
But I don't need to get emotionally involved.
Right. When it involves other people, I get those other people involved right away. Like, okay, let's all get in a room. Or I'll talk to that person and be like, is this how life is? Is this how things are going? No, that was because of this other thing. So you find out, like, okay, get to both sides of the story, then get everybody in the room and get past it and then move on.
If you can.
Or can you write an email that's just recapping, this is my understanding of the situation. What, does this match with your perspective? What have I forgotten to add here? And usually that's, oh, look, it wasn't a thing at all.
Right.
And oftentimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes
that's fair.
The drama needs the drama, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It feeds itself.
Or they just, people don't get along for whatever reason. And
so I think like number one, get along.
Play nicely with others.
Play nice. Communicate.
Over communicate.
Over communicate.
If you have to be the bigger person and suck it up, then do that.
Definitely.
And sometimes
do it, Chad.
The best thing to do is nothing. Having clear leadership, everybody on the same page, know what the mission is, your purpose.
I bit my tongue so hard I think I drew blood.
That's the worst. What's worse, tongue or lip?
Tongue.
Tongue
is
I eat spicy food.
Okay,
So,
you were biting your tongue, Chad. Spit it out.
No, I think at the end of the day, like, there's a couple of things. One, I mean, we're talking predominantly about project teams, right?
Right.
As consultants.
Yes.
And the project team needs to have like absolute trust from the business that they're serving, right? So if you're a project team reporting to the IT organization or the, a specific business unit within an organization, you're going to have a product owner type role. 1, maybe 2, 3, 4, whatever that is. If you have the trust of those people, and we could have an entirely different discussion about how you build trust, but if those people trust you and you say, listen, we've identified, we've got a couple of problems on the team, here's how we would like to solve them.
Yep.
That is, we've talked about how to identify it. How you deal with it is kind of, listen, I mean,
we've taken these steps to try to solve it ourselves.
Yep.
Now that
we
hasn't
can't do anything.
worked.
Yeah, exactly. So bring it, but if you don't have that trust and you just come to them with problems, now you're the drama.
Yeah.
It's
bringing problems without
if there's a problem,
never a solution.
Be able to articulate the problem and then offer a solution.
Yeah. And that's why I drilled into the metrics. Like, here's specifics. Like, hey, we had to redo this 3 times. This person is estimating things on a different level, and it's taking time. We think he might be more successful somewhere else. And then actually being able to phrase the problem in a way that makes it seem like, this is going to sound like BS, but like, hey, this person might be more successful somewhere else, where in your head you're like, probably not, but I don't want to say this guy's just bad.
Well, and I think we've all seen places where that has actually succeeded, right? This person did not work on our team for whatever reason, but boy, they sure shone on this other team. And I don't know what they did or how it worked, but
there is
having
chemistry.
That change.
Yes, for sure.
Chemistry exists between people and within teams, and if somebody does not have chemistry with the rest of the team, it's really never going to work.
Or just the realization that you were shuffled to another team because you were a problem, and actually having that event happen in your career is probably enough to make you realize, okay, I need to change. I'm going to do much better on this team over here.
Right.
Yeah, if you're shuffled from team to team to team because all those teams had a problem.
Yes.
Somehow.
Yeah.
If
There's one
if you're the
constant.
common thread, yeah.
Yeah.
But I
AITA.
wouldn't take it as, if you're shuffled, a couple times, not like if it's numerous, if it's absolutely an established pattern that you're getting shuffled, yes, you need to absolutely look inside
the mirror.
yourself. But if it's a couple times, it may be down to the chemistry thing, and that's okay. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Wait, Kyle, really quick. You look really nice today.
Thank you. I put on a hat.
Yep.
It's a great hat.
Keep doing that.
Yeah.
Love that hat.
I'm the guy that wears this hat now. I decided that this is the hat I wear. Yeah. I don't have a cool hat like Chad. I'd like to have a hat like that. A baseball cap.
With a secret team on it.
Yeah. I just don't know how to buy things. All right. That was the SDG podcast. Thanks for listening. If you want to drop us an email, we're at thepodcasters@solutiondesign.com. Until next time, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye,
Goodbye.
everybody.
So long.
Bye.